Yeah, it's free library Wi-Fi.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody, we'll get started in just a minute or so. We'll give our attendees from away just a few more minutes to log on.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Just FYI, we did start the live stream on the meeting because we've got a quorum in the room. Just I like to let everybody know.
Great.
We'll get started in just a minute.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, 6.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the January 9th, 2023 meeting of the Board of Trustees. With the first order of business being public participation. I want to note that we had Harvey ranked by video as well, a board member, and a bunch of different guests tonight that we'll introduce as they present.
I do not have any public participation.
Okay, then I will then move to the architect presentation on the building feasibility study. I'll throw it to Suzanne. If you can introduce who's with you, and then we'll proceed from there.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. So again, I'm Suzanne Ingrana with Ashton McGraw Architects and Vazen Studio. With me from Ashton McGraw, I have Brooke Williams. Natalie has my name on her, but that's Natalie Redmore, Deanna Hine. And then also from Sage Engineering, we have John Edwards. And then from from KFA, we have Ed Keplinger, and he's also named Suzanne Ingrano, which is why I'm like stuttering here. But that he's on the landscape architecture side. So tonight we have an updated presentation based on the feedback that we got from you all last time. So we appreciate all of the commentary during our presentation, as well as the follow-up comments. They were very helpful and really good for us to kind of dial in what you were kind of the thoughts and feedback so that we could develop some refined options, which is what you'll see tonight. I believe that went out to you on Friday, so hopefully you got a little bit of time to review that in advance. And so if there's any questions along the way, please chime in. There are a couple of goals, but I think, Brooke, you're gonna kind of review those and kick us off.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. In a second. All right. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, so Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and we're going to jump right in here. All right, so as Suzanne said, a couple of points for the meeting. We're going to go through just a quick goal. We're going to review the key priorities and purpose statements we spoke about during the last meeting, just so that we can lock those in, because they will be key drivers as we move the project forward. And then we're going to go through some design feedback that we use selectively to go over these new hybrid options with you and get to see basically we come up with 2 really great options that we think address all of your needs. and have a discussion around which one of those options we're looking to pursue. Okay, so for the goal, we want to really make sure we're confirming the vision for the Bethlehem Public Library that encapsulates the critical successes of the project. So based on your feedback, we're going to select a single design option to focus the remainder of this study portion on. The key priorities, we reviewed these last time. I did make some small adjustments based on some language choices from the feedback we received in the moment. But again, if you have any comments on these, we will be reviewing these going forward. They're items that you guys would consider critical successes for the project. The first of which is to create a safer environment that is more accommodating to patrons and library activities, has a clear vehicle and pedestrian traffic pattern, and a more prominent entry. To be considered the port in a storm for our community members and a valued community support partner. Create an easily accessible addition that caters to the library and community program needs and accommodates multifunctional, flexible spaces and increases patron capacity to a minimum of 250. We're also going to be looking at providing adequate space to ensure that multiple demographic needs of patrons are accommodated in functional spaces, customized to their intended use and programmatic needs, while cohesively integrating efficient employee operational spaces. Is there anything that anyone wants to add to these key priorities, or do we have the list? Silence, we did it. Amazing.
I will, Brooke, was I just, I look at this 50 times and still will come up with something new. I think last time we heard about a modern, maybe I'm remembering wrong, but a modern aesthetic or a modern new experience or something like that. Does that kind of show up in here, or does that still need to be added based on those in the group?
That brings us to our purpose statement.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry.
It rings a bell because it's in here. So this is our purpose statement. It's the true driver. It's something that we think, a statement that really encapsulates the spirit of the project, and making sure it encompasses what you're striving to accomplish and why you're trying to do it. So with that, we have reformatted this very slightly. So it's to position the Bethlehem Public Library as a community resource that is accessible to all, offering modern programming in a mindful environment that's nestled within the fabric of the community, designed in a way that's welcoming, simple to navigate, modern, and adaptable to a variety of programs, both inside the library and throughout the site. Optimizing the library so that both patrons and staff have cohesive environments to suit their evolving needs and to support the next generation of collaboration, discovery, and learning. Any comments here?
Great to me. This is Charmaine.
Yeah, I think that.
Very good. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, great, because we're going to be definitely utilizing this throughout the course of the project, to really make sure we're capturing everything that we need to make sure this project is a success. So moving on, we're going to go into the design options. And before we get into them, just a couple of reminders of things to consider. These design studies are diagrams. They're intended to assess how each of the primary program areas we're looking at interact with one another and the site, specifically because in this project, the addition and the parking has a large role in how the building is going to end up being laid out. The diagrams are intended to be representational of volume and location, not necessarily the physical form of the building itself. That is in the next iteration of design where you flesh that out. And then as we progress through these design studies, we did get a good list of 3D perspectives from the first round. We want to make sure that those views are still what you're looking for in this next round. So keep that in mind of key views that you want to see in either of the hybrid options. And then we did want to call out there was a comment in the feedback about construction sequencing. We understand that you do want to try to keep some of the library open during the construction process. We are considering that. That's considered just a phased approach, and we will be looking at more in depth going forward. But for these diagrams, this is just to nail down the overall direction.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
So the last one on construction sequencing, that really caught my eye when I was reviewing this. And just, I assume that the trustees and the staff we're mindful that we want the library to be open during the construction. And then obviously some messaging and all the rest will have to take place for patrons to understand that when things kick off.
Yep.
It won't be necessarily the same experience, but there's a reason why. But yeah, that really caught my eye, so I appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely. So I wanted to remind you all, these were the 5 options we had looked at during our last meeting. The little heart icons indicate the, I guess, likes, if you will, for each option. So going right off the bat, we eliminated option 1 completely. And then options 4 and 5, while they still had a lot of interest, they had a lot of great commentary around those options. But we did feel with a lot of the cons that it actually made more sense to invest those positive feedback into options 2 and 3. So you'll find we eliminated 4 and 5, but taking the positive feedback around those and incorporating them into either option 2 or option 3. So we're going to be looking at 2 hybrid options today, and they incorporate your feedback. So the first one is the option 2 hybrid, that is activate Borthwick, which was option number 2, and then no more mezzanine, which was option number 5. Just going quickly over some of the feedback we received that helped influence this specific hybrid. The pro for option 2 was an entrance to the large community room on the Delaware Avenue side of the building could potentially allow us to close off the existing Delaware entrance avenue, possibly merging the children's storeroom with the children's book area. The cons, both of them that we received were all about congestion at the front entry. It's too congested with the amount of traffic in all the different entry points for all the service items, which in this case could also have been a deal killer. And then option 5, we got a lot more positive feedback. So this one did a really great job of bringing the entrance closer for a lot of people. However, we will note that that basically isolated it to one side being really great for patrons, the other side feeling better for staff. Everyone really likes the idea of having presence on Borthwick as an opportunity for the library to make a statement. The mezzanine was also something that was mentioned. If it was addressed, there was commentary around it really impacting the majority of public feedback for this planning stage, but potentially with other meeting areas and using that space more adaptable or better, essentially. And then the option to have deliveries relocated to the side of the building was also another positive. Moving that traffic away from the generic population seemed like a really great idea. So with that, going back on the left is option 2, the original, with the activate Borthwick property and the highly congested front. And then the right was option 5, where we kind of segmented the service and maintenance from the community area. And then I'm going to hand it over to Natalie, and she's going to walk you through the hybrid version.
Thanks, Brooke. So this is the new hybrid version. I'll walk through some of the key parts of the building. So we have an addition in the dark blue area, which is the community use space. We took this from one of the original diagrams and kind of combined it with that back of it, that main entrance that Brooke was just pointing to, the red star. That would be our primary entrance for pedestrians. This gives an entrance. Once you've entered into the building, you have the choice to then move into the community space or going to the main library space from there. So it provides nice access to both. We do have room for a small green space next to the community area, but the main green space, the larger one, would be a little bit near the location where you have it now, on the plan left side of the building. We do increase the amount of main library space, but we're providing a smaller addition for staff use. This was seen in the previous versions so that we can address the book pickup and drop off window. So the dark blue arrow is the traffic for the book pickup lane. This just required a little bit of extra staff space. And then we did want to maintain the relationship between the staff area and the maintenance area. So we are providing a second staff space that keeps that relationship, because we know about the deliveries that come, the unboxing, there's a huge connection between those two spaces. But the new pink area kind of comes around the back of the building, which that brown arrow and star would be your main service entrance for those trucks and deliveries. So this did what we were hoping in separating that traffic from the main entrance and from the pedestrians, and where the general public parking and driving is as well. So with that, we have 150 parking spaces identified in this plan, 6,400 square feet of the outdoor and green space, and this would be for accommodating 250 people. And I'll just pause for a second and see if, Ed, you have any comments you'd like to add on to this plan regarding the parking or the site.
Yeah, I guess Natalie touched upon it, but one of the things we were looking at here was mainly with the service area and isolating from the rest of the traffic. And what we can envision is trucks coming into the site, going to that far, we'll call it southwest corner, and then they would back in, or there'd be a little driveway that connects to the building there. So that really, there's really no, at that point, there's really no conflicts between library users, either the kids or the adults, and the service traffic. So it really cleans up that cross conflict. That's all I had to add here.
Yeah, and I will note too, I know that the number of parking spaces was a question last time. So you currently have 117 total parking spaces. That includes 8 accessible parking spaces. This option gives you an additional 33, so about a 28% increase in your current parking lot. And then also to mention, for that main staff area, or main library space, it's about a 33% increase over what you have today.
I'll open it up to any questions or comments on this one. After this, we're going to go through the second option, and then finally we'll come to a slide where we can compare both side by side and look at the exact numbers of the square footage.
I think we're good.
All right, great to hear.
Move on to the next one. So in option 3, this combines split the middle and the new front, which was our original number 4. So pros from option 3, like the idea of moving the maintenance to the back of the building. It did the best job at addressing the distance to parking, as you now have parking on 2 points of access, so that you're reducing some of your staff parking essentially, or giving your patrons closer access, excuse me. And then you like that the additional space for the collection without the need to necessarily add a second floor. This also is a great option where you don't necessarily need to address the mezzanine level, although there is potential to. And then the parking in the Borthwick house is still a question. a lot of commentary was around using the Borthwick property exclusively as the site for the addition, in hopes that it did gain prominence on the street. And then cons for this option, why was the book pickup requires site-wide navigation, since you did have to traverse quite far through the site in order to access that. And then there were concerns about access for deliveries that go between the library and the green space, making this route a little congested for pedestrian traffic and potentially having some safety concerns. And then another comment here was about adding maintenance and deliveries to the backside of the mezzanine area. And then for the new front, the pros that were in this were the convenience of the book pickup being so close to the road for quick access. And then the differentiation between service entrance and general patron use as well. And the addition potential of green space at the front of the library. So as a reminder, split the middle, original number 3 is on the left. And then a new front, original option 4 is on the right. And that brings us into the hybrid version.
So the hybrid version for split the middle still has the primary community addition going down the middle of the parking lot. The benefit of this is we still get a view of the addition from Borthwick, but you can see the new dark blue line and the yellow, dark yellow addition puts the book drop on the Borthwick property. So it kind of is the best of both of those previous options. So it's a quick in and out in the parking lot, and you still get visibility of that addition. With the addition coming down the middle of the parking lot, we can provide entrances directly into the building from either side of that addition in the dark red. So kind of convenient for multiple parking areas. To bring the building even further towards the parking, we've got that dark orange addition, which is your main library space. This allows for an increase in square footage for the main library area as well. And then again, we have the maintenance around the back side of the building with that secondary entrance, similar to what we saw in the first option. Again, this separates the patron pedestrian traffic from those service vehicles. And we keep an area adjacent to the maintenance area for staff, but then we have the front facing one near Borthwick for, probably a checkout area and maintenance and monitoring of the book pickup area. For this one, we have 170 parking spaces and 6,000 square feet of outdoor green space to accommodate 240 people. So a key difference in that site layout is there's one designated green space instead of the 2 that we saw from the last version. And it takes a little bit of a different shape than the first one. And it has a direct relationship to the main library space.
I'll also add, just as you're reviewing the differences between the two options, say that 150 parking spaces is all you need. We can modify this one to also be 150 parking spaces or whatever the ideal number is, and increase the green space or increase some other program elements. So there's elements of each that are that we can refine based on your comments, and it's an iterative thing moving forward.
I also wanted to note too, in this option, we are suggesting the removal of the mezzanine level. In the previous option, we were suggesting retaining that mezzanine level. And then for the parking, just for some numbers at you, this option increases your existing parking by 45%. And because we're now adding an addition for the main library space, you're looking at about a 56% increase in square footage for the library proper. Oh, and one other comment as well. I know there's a lot of feedback around the addition being on the Borthwick property. However, if you do and choose to do it at this kind of split the middle, you will still get really nice views of that addition from the Borthwick street. So even though it may not be specifically on this property, because everything here will be lower, this will definitely stand out from this perspective. So with
Question on
that,
this one.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So can you actually, with your cursor, show me how someone comes in and uses the book pickup from the street?
Yep. So in this case, you have one primary entry from the street. So but these light blue lines are all two-way traffic. So you would come in here, head down this way. This would actually end up being a traffic circle, if you will. So you would navigate through the book pickup lane and then return back to this main traffic and back out. So in this
Okay, now, yeah, can you show me how you would come just to a community meeting at the library? Just go in and to just a regular meeting.
So for parking?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically any of the exterior of the purple areas on the opposite sides of these blue lines are going to be parking spaces. So you'll have parking here, you can park this side, over here and over here. Unless there's anything you want to add to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if you were coming to an event, you could either come in the main entrance and make a left turn and come in and park in the spaces that Brooke just identified and enter the entrance on the east side of the building. Or you would go straight in to the parking lot, park anywhere in those areas and come into the entrance on the west side of the building. So you have two. The nice thing about this option is now the community space is centrally located and you have parking on both sides of it, and your pathway, at least for the early arrival patrons, is a very short walk.
Yeah, and then so you don't have an exit, you have just one entry exit point, right?
We do, yes.
It's one entrance.
Right. It's possible that we could add a second one down at the south end of the site, not where the existing entrance is, but a little further down in that location. Possibly, or we could reutilize the other entrance. We're trying to simplify the traffic patterns. You can see the way we've laid out this site. It's the lines are fairly straight. It's two-way traffic. It's very intuitive. You don't have any awkward intersections. So we're trying to make a safe a safe site for vehicles, for vehicle operation.
Are you all set, Mark? Yeah. Okay. I have to admit, and I know we'll see them side by side, I actually like this a lot more than I thought I would after I saw it. A couple of questions. You see the larger parking areas, you drive in and it's 2-way. See that gray space in between there? Can that be made a green space? What is that?
That's the existing green space that with the treed area, the mounded area between the parking areas.
So that can also be like planted.
It is planted now. There's existing trees in that area now.
Right, but you could make that could remain green. Right now it's gray, but it could be green.
Oh, it will be green, yes.
Otherwise.
The intent is not to impact that space.
Great. And then either with see where the book pickup area comes in. I kind of like that design, but can you make some of that green in between there too?
Oh, we would. You know what
that would all be looking
here. What I envision here is that it would be a book drop, but it may also be more of a ceremonial drop-off area. Say there's an event in the community center and you want to drop off grandma or the kids or whatever, you'd pull into this circle. There'd be more of a formal drop-off. The center area of that purple. That center area would be a landscaped area, curved
Okay.
island, plantings.
I think one
Yeah.
thing that,
Dan's on the call too. I know I could mention that there could be green all around. I assume that.
yes, so the area in green on the plan is for outdoor learning. So that would be your stage space that could accommodate a large group of people. That's not to say that's the only grass on the site. So we would have the grassy green planting areas in several other locations too.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a really nice value add with this circle because essentially you can have the circle where there's a lane that pulls out that goes to the book pickup. And then a secondary drop off for events and things, or just picking and dropping off kids or grandparents, etc.
My last question is, can you do this design and not take the mezzanine out?
So we could look at retaining the mezzanine. There's also potential to maybe maintain a portion of the mezzanine as well, that mimics the staff area. The biggest reason here is just opening up that space creates a better volume for usage for staff as well as for pickup and experience, because you're only at an 8-foot ceiling there if we were to retain the mezzanine. But we certainly look at options for doing so. It's just the mezzanine comes out to this column line a bit and a little bit conflicts with this entry sequence we're trying to establish.
Thank you.
If we take a look at the next slide, we can look at the square foot of the staff space. Here we go. So the spreadsheet on the table on the right shows you what your existing square footage is. That row that says staff areas right in the middle. Yes, those numbers contain the 2,300 square feet of staff areas. Split the middle is 6,400 square feet of staff without the mezzanine at all. So that's all on the first floor. Activate Borthwick has 8,200 square feet of staff space because it still has the mezzanine. But like Brooke said, there are options to keep it or remove it in both scenarios.
So just in general, I did calculate some of these differences here just to talk through them. So the community space in both options. So option 2, this one, it's a pretty much astounding. It's 192% increase over what you have today, adding about 9,200 square feet. For option 3, it's a 2,700 square foot addition, adding about, lost my place, 56% increase over what you guys have today. And both of these options allow for expanded ceiling heights. I know that was a big concern with the existing community space. The main library, in option 2, it's a 33% increase, about 5,500 square feet. In option 3, it's a 56% increase in your library proper space. That's 9,200 square feet of additional space. The staff areas in option 2, it's a 39% increase. In option 3, it's an 8.5% increase, unless we chose to retain the mezzanine. And then for the maintenance areas, for option 2, there's about an 80% increase over what you have today. And option 3, it's a 60% increase over what you have today. Are there any initial reaction preferences?
Well, I guess my initial is I like to split the middle, but I'm disappointed that the community space is smaller. It was 240 people, if I remember. The community room would hold 240 people. Is that correct?
So we're
That
still.
was-
Go ahead.
No, was it 240, was that for the green space, the amount of the people who were available for the green space, or was that the?
Yeah, no, those numbers were initially for the green space. The community area we're targeting, community space essentially. We are targeting a minimum of a 250 person capacity.
Okay, so then the blue space, the dark blue space on both of these diagrams holds the same number of people, or no?
No, the dark blue space on option 2 would hold more people because we are going to be utilizing potentially that space underneath the mezzanine as well. And option 3, the dark blue space is smaller, but you'd still be able to capture the minimum 250 that you guys have stated you'd like for your community space. That being said, there's nothing saying that we couldn't extend the community space in this direction. But we are limited. We cannot push it too much further into the parking lot because it starts to impede with the parking flow.
Right, it does look like you could go a little bit towards the green space though.
Yeah, we could go in this direction. We could go, it'd be better to go in this direction than we wouldn't be able to really go this way, but we can certainly look at expanding it and making it wider. But ultimately, our next goal is to get in, actually start to put in an auditorium space so you guys can start to understand how this breaks out.
So can you just give me an estimate of what the difference is between the auditorium space between these two diagrams? Is it 250 versus 400 in the number 2?
Let me do some quick math here. I tried to get all of the math done ahead of time, but hold on.
It's just that community space is important for people, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking.
It should be roughly similar, Brooke, the dark blue space only.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have the square footage of just the addition space. I have the entire community space that we're looking at. But
I would say roughly though, just by the kind of area of the blue
You look
space,
at
that they're about the same. And the proportion or the kind of configuration of the blue space in the option 2 activate Borthwick is a little bit of a funky shape, which would actually make the usable square footage a little bit less than what the overall square footage would be. So the blue space itself is about the same. It's how we're utilizing the interior space. And that's what Brooke was saying, that we could kind of pull the split the middle option. We could pull space in and blur that line further, move that line a little bit more. And that's a perfect example of some of the ideas that the feedback we'd love to hear. So, we're kind of taking a stab at the program increases or changes. And if there's, if you prefer larger, but like split the middle, we can absolutely do that.
yeah. And I did just run the numbers of what we have. So looking at the community space, basing it roughly on about 20 square feet per person. For the split the middle one, you're at about 375 person capacity if it is a kind of seated auditorium style space. And that would be close for this, as Suzanne was saying, for this portion of the blue community space. And here, this would more likely be shared community, like resource options, like meeting rooms and things of that nature, not necessarily your auditorium style space. So around 375 if it was completely made for a seated space.
I know we talked about maybe some flexibility in that, to not have the whole thing set up as a seated auditorium. My concern, I think we discussed this somewhat when we met with you before to give you when we first started this process, we were first meeting you by Zoom, was I'm really concerned about creating a massive space at the library that we can't accommodate by parking. I think it would be one thing that would just enrage the neighborhood and cause some concerns. So I'm comfortable with the 250, maybe pushing out to 300, but not much beyond that. I think we also said that between the district and the town hall, there are some larger spaces. So I am gonna encourage us to think a moderate, a large space that expands what we offer now, but not so large that we're infringing upon the immediate community that we're situated in, that if we don't have enough parking, I know we have some overflow parking across the street, but you can remind me, I think, is there parking spaces? There's something coming up that talks about number of parking spaces. I thought there was another, there's another chart coming up, but I would like to try to accommodate the number of, I guessing how many people come in per vehicle, the number of parking spaces we have that can be accommodated by the parking lots given the space in the auditorium, if that all makes sense.
Right, and the thing is, doesn't have to be all one space. We don't have all one space now. If you look on these two plans, the community room doesn't exist, right? So the community room and boardroom are not there. So some of that function that you're doing here right now, or what the community does in the storeyard room, needs to be accommodated into that blue area somehow. And I think that's what that Activate Borthwick, that light shaded blue are those other spaces. And how do we imagine we would design that?
Yeah, and I think that's what we were talking about, like, I'm not sure, I'm not committing us to that, but we were talking about this kind of wheel and seat, so sometimes it's an auditorium, sometimes it's not, but I'm not sure, and it'd be interesting to hear from other trustees, if we were ever talking about a fixed seated auditorium that accommodates 350 to 400 people. I think we were talking about having some flexibility so that space could have multiple uses.
Yes, I think initially, as we've gone back through some of the studies, we envision this really as a multi-purpose space. So it does have the capability of having a kind of fixed seated, not exactly fixed seat, but a seated stage presenter option, as well as a way for it to be open for, let's say, fitness classes or things of that nature. We also discussed having it be something that can be split into a partition, so that can be two separate spaces. It's not necessarily that we're saying this area is going to be a seated 375 person capacity auditorium. That's just if we were to stuff as many people as we could in that space, that gives you an idea. But this space does have to still be segmented. Like, we have to add toilet rooms, we have to add community spaces, there's going to be staff areas, there's got to be egress paths. Like, there's going to be a lot of things added within that footprint.
Got it.
Our goal
Thank you.
here is to see where you want it situated.
And we can't see it for Harmeet. Harmeet, do you have anything to add? It's kind of odd having you not in the room, but I mean, I don't see you, but I know that you've been part of this process for quite a while.
Really just mulling at the moment. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion right now. I think I need to stare at them for a little while longer.
I think there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah. I can see the traffic circle on Borthwick being a love or hate item. I'm a love at the moment. But I can see that being a divisive element for some people.
How many have been added in the community recently?
Say more, say again.
I think I love the idea of the traffic circle. I like the idea of the ceremonial drop off. I like the efficiency of all of that. I like the fact that it's on the Borthwick side. I think that's a very elegant way to address that particular, I think, strongly stated want and need of the community. Because it is on the Borthwick side, though, I can see that it is obviously going to change traffic patterns on Borthwick and kind of change the character of Borthwick as it heads toward Delaware. So I'm just saying that and my initial reaction is to like it very much and to like it for our efficiencies. I can also see that being a sticking down the line in terms of, how not just our residential neighbors might feel about that, but how our community neighbors, the Bethlehem government and police right across the street might have some pretty strong thoughts on that.
Yeah.
So I like it very much.
It's not though, really, I mean, because the entrance to the parking lot is the blue dot up at the top, so
Yeah.
it might be a circle, but it is contained in the parking lot. It shouldn't be snarling up traffic on the street or anything, right?
Yeah,
That's why.
it's separate.
I mean, particularly if you don't add that second entrance that was referenced. I think if you don't give them the opportunity to cut in there, that helps.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I am a fan of simplifying the entrances because it's a source of continuous
It is.
confusion for our patrons, so.
The other thing for three, for me, two looks like there's still a hall to the entrance. You know, and that's something I think clearly came out. Is that true? It's a longer walk to the entrance on option two than it is for three. Because I think we read some of the community feedback and all, and they were saying we want it to be simpler and closer. Is that correct? Is correct to as a longer walk?
Yeah, so in option 2, you do get this front parking here, which is a simple walk to the entry. But because the majority of your parking space is actually back in this corner up here, if you're parking back here, no matter where we put it unless we keep pushing the building forward, it's going to be pretty distant. Which is one of the reasons we like in option 3, where you get the multiple entrances to try to engage as much of your parking areas that we can.
Like the side parking.
Yeah.
You comment on where you would put the disabled patron parking in either or both?
I would put the ADA parking on both sides of the entrances. I would put it on the Borthwick Street side and also in the parking area north of it. I'd split whatever's required. You know, for 100 and we'll say 150 parking spaces, you'd have 6 to 8 ADA spaces. So maybe there'd be 3 or 4 along Borthwick and 3 to 5 along the north parking lot.
And then what about in 2?
And 2, I would put them right where that green space mass is, right where the cursor is. We would just have a grouping of 6 or 7 or 8 there.
So that distance would just be from the parking across the sidewalk to the main
Yeah,
entry.
maybe 30 or 40 feet at the most from the ADA space to the entrance. Yeah, both of the entrances, either option is significantly better than the current situation. Which I think you can see in ghosted in on option 3. It's really down at the service area.
The other reason that this entry sequence will seem shorter in both options is because we've also eliminated, once you originally went down this long path, you also had to go through a pretty long corridor before you gained access to the library. We've completely removed that in both options. You enter and you're immediately given the opportunity to go into the library proper or into the community space in both options. So you no longer have the interior walk in addition to the exterior walk.
So
And
in
that's
option,
Go ahead.
in option 2, can you comment on what the pedestrian walking from the parking that further lot, where do they access with regard to where the book pickup is? Because it seems like they're walking right through where the traffic is moving.
Yeah, that's a detail we have to work out, but they would come across where the 3-way intersection is. We would definitely have clearly defined sidewalks, concrete sidewalks with curbs. The pickup would just be a single lane through that area, or it may widen out closer to the building so that there's the ability for cars to pass other cars. But we would, that area would just be dedicated to people picking up books only. So there would be whatever that traffic flow is, and I don't think it's that significant compared to the amount of I just don't, it may not be that significant.
And I have to admit, during some of the early discussions, I didn't like the idea of book pickup, curbside being on the Borthwick side. But after seeing these, for me, number 3 makes sense. It just, you drive in, you go out and you're out of here, as opposed to this kind of, I'm sure in reality, it looks a little bit, it's simpler than it looks on 2. But for me, when I look at 2, there's just too many arrows and people walking here and walking there, whereas it's very clear on 3. And I know they will have signage regardless of which option, but when I saw 3, I said, oh, this makes a lot of sense. It's off to a side, good signage, people are in and out, versus this kind of cars going both ways in a few different directions and trying to get to the book drop off or the curbside.
I think 3, because it moves the traffic for the book drop and the maintenance area away from both sides of the entrance as far as they can be, helps a lot.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, I like 3, but what are the negatives of 3? Like, what are the things that we're missing? Is there enough storage in 3? Is there enough, like, what, is it less screen space? I'm trying to figure out the negatives of 3, because it looks pretty good to me, but.
Well, one of them might be that you have to keep the I mean, you don't have to keep the mezzanine, but their drawing is assuming you're getting rid of it, sorry, that you're getting rid of it.
Right.
So that the cost, that's a huge,
Right, so that's.
could be a downside to this.
Yeah.
That's why I asked if you could do 3 without them, because that, I was thinking money, that's the
Yeah.
reason. That's
Yeah, I mean, the money of both these would have to be obviously talked about. That's
I mean,
huge.
but if you shift the community room addition more to the left, that allows you to keep the mezzanine, or doesn't it, if you're not trying to shift it to get a bigger room?
Yeah, so the mezzanine removal was, I'd say it's definitely more for the interior experience. That space is so low, it just seems like it would be a little bit difficult to get people to want to spend time as far as like having that be community spaces. But if we look at having the mezzanine and keeping that staff and just having it stacked above, as long as the pickup area is okay with the low ceiling height in there, that's something we can certainly look at addressing.
You know, we can also look at, there's within each potential challenge or con, there's also an opportunity. So for instance, while at the moment from a entry per session perspective, we're thinking that it'd be nice to have a higher ceiling. It could be something that as we dive deeper into the program, maybe the lower ceiling provides a great opportunity for more intimate study rooms or something. And does that program maybe make sense there near closer to the entry where there's you know, tutors come in and there's visual kind of access to that, and, you know, working out how that works with the entry points, but there's maybe that's an opportunity instead. So for both options, we can absolutely look at keeping the mezzanine or removing the mezzanine or somewhere in between. So in terms of exactly what the interior ends up and how much program is in each, we can massage that to your ideal scenario. And it's, I think the things that are a little bit more defined by these two options are the frontage, what you see, how the parking works, how the book pickup works, where the outdoor learning opportunities are. Those types of things are more driven by some of these diagrams, and we can massage all of the interior programs.
I know some of the community feedback also said people want quiet workspace. And so maybe they can go up in the mezzanine and they don't care where the ceilings are, but
Jeff, that space has never been used for that, or has it?
It has in the past,
Okay.
half of it when the children's librarians were in the little alcoves that are down at the bottom of the building. Half of the third of the space was dedicated to quiet study. I don't know that it's an awesome idea to have unobserved public space in a public library.
Just think of that.
That's what I don't like about that.
Yeah.
Even if you were to go back and take that and turn it back into stack space, which is what it's designed to do, you still don't want unobserved people. In a public library, it's just not a good idea. So that's the challenge always with the mezzanine and the built-in stacks.
And you're talking unobserved where a person would
But
able to sit and watch versus.
No staff people are up there.
no
right?
staff people would be
No.
upstairs, right? If you imagine like there was no staff or having to station someone upstairs to manage rooms or whatever, I think. I think that's originally why it turned so quickly into it never was really used as stack space except for closed stack. It was closed stacks almost immediately after the library opened in 72 for those reasons.
I know, this is Charmaine, I favor 3.
I feel like most of us don't love the mezzanine. What we don't like about keeping it is, you know, getting rid of it is the cost of it. So.
Right.
Right.
I mean, some of the expenses. I think back in 2000 was the addition of the second. And actually what I like from both of these plans is that there isn't a second floor.
Right.
Don't have a second floor, then you don't need to worry about an elevator. The best thing is elevator, don't have one. That's the best answer.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
One of the things as we kind of, once we conclude the study and move on beyond that, one of the things we can look at is to carry alternates. So we can start getting really defined cost information around what is it to keep the mezzanine and work within that, and what is it to eliminate it, and the work that's involved with both of those options. Same thing with anything else that you're curious about in more bite-sized elements. We can carry those in the future as, you know, if you like 3, but you're not sure about the mezzanine, we can carry that in the future as an alternate and get really good pricing to inform you of the final decision for that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I like both of these. I do like 3 better, but you know, and I have no idea how much either of them cost. So it's just saying that obviously cost will be part of the factor.
I do think it addresses. The proximity questions, which is what most of the comments that we receive from the public, and most common questions.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Do you have what you need?
Yeah.
RJP.
So for the next steps
Well,
here.
are we supposed to vote on those 2
Yeah, I
diagrams?
like
or-
to hear from everybody. So
Okay, yeah, we can do an official vote. I like this idea. I
Before
can't,
we do that,
I
let's,
can't see you all though. That's I mean, I can see you, but you're kind of small.
yeah, before we go, I'd like to make sure everyone has an opportunity to ask any other questions or speak any comments on that. So,
And make clear what we're voting on, that's we're
Right.
pursuing more information
design.
regarding costs and
Right.
design.
I think they're trying to narrow down. They want, it's your preference for us to choose one of these one.
Right, exactly.
So you want
Yeah.
direction to these 2 things.
Right, our objective is to pick one of these that we can then take further, and by take further, I mean, give you a bit more of a refined floor plan where we start to map out where some of the program happens on the interior and exterior. Get a more developed site option, so it's getting out of the diagrammatic stage. And we really need to, the biggest driver is so that we can get you the 3D views of what this might start to look like coming to life.
So when would costs be introduced to the discussion? And would you have a ballpark on 3 as diagrammed or 3 as diagrammed with amendments? I mean, when do we start talking about costs?
So our initial thinking is if you are able to select one, we would provide a cost based on that selection and the additional refinement we provide for it. And that would be presented together with the 3D views and the refined plan, as Brooke just mentioned. We can, at a diagrammatic level, provide a cost for either. I will say the difference might not be that big. I think the differences might be in the nuances of decision making down the road on how big is the addition, and that might impact either one, so we can make those decisions regardless of which option you pick. But cost, understanding of cost would come in the next step.
That's helpful. So does any trustee have any other further comments or questions? I mean, you got anything?
No, just I think after we vote, I'd be interested to hear the librarians' thoughts on what each of these designs or whichever one we settle on does for the interior flow of the library, right? In terms of, you know, the circulation desk, the staff area, et cetera, right? Because a lot of that is going to need to move to be closer to what the new entrance is, and the level of disruption modeling that requires for the interior spaces would be good.
Right, and I'll chime in with my, tip in my hand. It seems like in the split the middle option, the possibility for having the circulation desk closer to the entrance seems more possible to me than in number 2. If you look at where the staff spaces are there and then where that entrance is, not that that entrance couldn't be moved to move that. So that's not, again, that's not a deciding factor, but as it looks right now, I can see because that the pickup window is there in the circulation area. I'm imagining that will be where the checkout desk will be. So the proximity of the checkout desk to the pickup window is closer and tighter than it is in 2, where you have a more remote, kind of like what we have now, functionally, a more remote pickup window, and then the checkout desk, even if the checkout desk is in the darker yellow part, closer to the parking lot right there, that would all have to be that checkout desk and pickup window. I just see that being a little bit closer in number 3.
So 3, we all think.
I mean, I guess that's the question. Is anybody super?
2 instead.
Yeah, is anybody a number 2 proponent? I mean, it may be, that may just be what I'm picking up here in the room and you guys can't see it. It seems to me that we're leaning towards 3 just from the comments I've got. And if anybody's not feeling that, now's your chance.
I mean, I definitely like 2 for a bunch of reasons, but clearly I think
It has greater parking, it's safer for pedestrians, it has one main green space, it has the book drop closer to the entrance. I mean, I think there are a lot of positives to it.
simple.
Yeah.
There is one other positive that I wanted to point out with 3, and making this library space versus in this option where it's more service space. This is a really prime viewpoint where when we get into interior studies, we can look at this further, but just imagining like a children's library, for example, being something that you can view potentially from the parking lot versus having a service thing be the primary view. So you're really creating a brand new front to the building and doing it this way. Just something I wanted to point out as well.
And that could have access to the green space too, or like through doors and things like that. So,
And gives this opportunity potentially for adding power and things that you were speaking of with a stage presence potentially.
I also think pedestrian access from Delaware is much easier in 3 than 2.
Oh,
Yeah, it does.
I think it's the same, isn't it?
It's more now, because you'd have
Because
to
you're
walk
going
around.
around. There is you can.
You'd have to walk all the way around the addition to go in.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you can keep that door, like, isn't there,
No.
I don't think.
you're not gonna keep that door?
I think that's one of the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to keep that most likely from a exiting code perspective. But in terms of that comment on accessing the main entry from there, that is completely spot on. So you could come in over to the right a little bit more, Brooke. You could create a new pathway connecting to the front entrance. More by the book pickup.
I mean, there is a walkway there.
There is, but it could be
No.
approved and turned into an actual.
There's no reason to use that walkway if you're a walker.
Right, except for when people mistakenly go that way.
Right.
So there'll be signage and more,
Yeah,
it'll be upgrades, and you'll get it.
All right, so I'm hearing go for 3. I don't think we need to vote.
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, 3, so I would just go for 3.
We're a consensus there, so that's easy.
And then options with and without the mezzanine and, sort of taking that. Into account.
Okay, great.
All right,
And option 3 is also the one that gives you the most addition to the library space. So you're you're doubling your current library square footage, because I know there's lots of commentary around adding more offerings. And then your parking is also a 43% increase. So you get an additional 53 spaces.
yeah,
Great.
Awesome. So with that, what time is it? 7:03. With that, are there any particular views that you want to see from a 3D perspective? Almost all of the commentary we received last time were for exterior views, which makes a ton of sense in this scenario. But is there anything in particular that you want to see beyond the major components?
I mean, so right almost exactly where the dot was, like right in right where the peach and the blue are meeting, right there in between the 2 asterisks. Yeah, right in there. Some view of what that might look like. I'd have a really hard time imagining what that space would look like if there was an interior view. I don't know which direction it should be pointing, but I think an interior view of that would be really helpful to me to imagine.
Yeah, and maybe what it looks like walking into the building as you look into the
Correct.
library.
Right.
Will there be a foyer where you clearly go, this community room or the library? You're standing in the middle of the library trying to figure out, there's a community room, okay?
Right. So if there was an interior one, that sounds like where I would be interested, but then exterior, in the middle of that circle or on Borthwick Avenue, looking at the circle and that space. And then also showing that what that addition looks like, because I think you if you're going to do it, you want to have a statement.
yeah.
And so being able to see what that looks like from the public area.
It's sort of where that maroon arrow is coming in from the north side. That way we'd see the new room. Right around there. That area. The new addition and some of the new program area that might be helpful too. Just
Okay.
Maybe.
We can do a wide angle, so it's across the green and you get this and this.
Great.
Okay. Awesome. You guys aren't going to have any homework.
So it's helpful to have things in advance, for sure.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, definitely helpful.
Okay, great. So then our next steps then, we will be refining option 3. And so that's just giving you a bit more detail into how that starts to flesh out. Again, it won't be anything final. We're not going to use that word yet, but it will definitely start to give you an understanding of what the space will start to feel like. The 3D views, we will do the views that you guys have just specified. So the vestibule, essentially the entry sequence between the community space and the library proper, looking at the book pickup circle and the addition on that side, and then the opposite side, looking at the main library edition and the community edition, how that comes together. And then we will also do a cost analysis. It sounds like for option 3, we'll mostly be looking at the option with the keeping the mezzanine versus removing the mezzanine and seeing what the cost differences might come out to in that scenario, which of course means renovating an elevator or not having an elevator. And then our final review meeting for this phase of the project, I wasn't certain when the next board meeting was scheduled for, but that would be our objective.
February just 13th here.
It's February 13th, is that
On the agenda, it's
February 13th?
Right before Valentine's Day.
That's right.
Perfect. It's 6 to 8, then I'm assuming.
The meeting starts at 6. I mean, that's, we put you right on the front of the page. So rather than having, try to guess when our meeting's gonna be over.
Okay, great.
And it would be,
Oh.
sorry, it would be helpful, when you do give us the cost of removing the mezzanine, to also just maybe have in your back pocket how much it would cost to put in an elevator if we have to go that way instead.
Yeah, because the elevator definitely needs some love.
Yes, I've heard a lot about this elevator. Okay, well, great. That's everything that we have for you guys tonight. So thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. And looking forward to getting into this next round. I'm super excited you picked 3. That was my favorite, so I can tell you.
And then possibly having possible slides before, whatever, so the meetings at 13 and backtrack to like.
Yeah, so similar.
That Friday before.
Yeah, Friday before the meeting, having something to look at before the meeting would be super helpful. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And we are, these presentations, I know you're receiving them, we're keeping in the appendix section at the end of the presentation for you guys, all of the previous content, so that if you forever need to reference anything or the process of how we got somewhere, you will have that for your records.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, I did see a lot of slides. I was like, wow, that's a lot of slides. And then we realized.
And then you were
that
like, yeah, just in case we need to reference back to anything, it's always great to keep it instead of delete it.
You know, Jeff, we have been informing the public of our meetings and all, but since we've set a lot of design, it might be interesting to go to like our immediate neighbor. Do you think I don't know, what does the board think? Do you need to go to the immediate neighbors?
It's totally disagree.
Not talking to the police, like the.
No, I disagree on that too. They're a member of the public, so they can tune in anytime they want.
Okay.
And when we get 5, we do the round, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Suzanne, Natalie, Deanna, do you guys have anything that I missed we need to add? Ed?
I'm good.
Ed?
All set?
John, are you good?
I have to wave big so you can see. Thank you.
Thank you. everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thanks a lot.
Good night. Thank you.
Right.
All right, to keep things moving here, we're gonna go to the previous meeting minutes on page 2, page 6, and page 7. You can take a quick look at those.
Hold on, you gotta give me a minute. I'm going. Fingers don't fail me now. Okay, here we go. You don't have to wait for me.
I didn't see anything, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, any questions or concern? Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Tim? Any opposed? Okay, seeing no opposition.
To do both.
Forward,
The second.
the second set is page 7 with the,
See Harvey, I assume.
Oh, and I meant to make a note on this one. I'm gonna change it so that it says the building project committee meeting instead of board meeting.
okay.
Okay, that's right.
So I did wonder, we don't have any minutes at all from our previous discussion with the architects.
We have the
Just
videos there, but it's not, there was no action. So we didn't have to take notes. The video is totally up on the website and it's, it was just a discussion. So there was no, it was a meeting because we had a quorum, but there was no action other than sort of.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay, any motion on this?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor, try playing saying aye. Okay, opposition, that motion carries as well. Okay, moving into the financial report, pages 8 through 16.
Okay,
Just to summarize, on the revenue side, we've received about 98% of budgeted tax revenues. Yeah, you might want to show. Yeah, I know you're going.
Yeah.
From the school district. Interest income is just over 26,000, which is more than 4 times what we budgeted. And that's obviously reflecting the positive change in the interest rate environment, which is really a great thing. Donations are up a bit because we received a $5,000 donation from Hungerford Charitable Foundation and also $1,000 from the Storches. Expenses are at about 3.5% under budget, which is tracking very closely to last year at this time.
Just while the slide's up, I emailed Sherry with a few questions and I asked her what the transfer of the $300,000 was for the from the money market account.
Right. So we transferred $300,000 just about every month to add money to the checking account to pay bills. It's a way that we manage funds, so we receive a higher interest rate on the money market account than we do on our checking account. We have to maintain a certain balance in the checking account. But we put as much as we can into the money market account and then move it as we need it, as we have to pay bills.
I want the trustees to be aware that I asked her that question.
Yeah. So that happens pretty much every month. You know, when we first get the big chunk of tax revenues, we put it in the money market account. And then we start moving it over as we
I
spend
didn't
it.
realize that, okay.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions about anything, if you wanna.
That includes on the warrant. You know, I asked a couple of questions on the warrant. There was a check to the New York State Income Tax Bureau and a check to the town of Bethlehem. So I just asked about that.
Yeah, in New York State income taxes, the payroll taxes that we withhold from employees, we have to remit that every month to New York State. And the town of Bethlehem payment was water and sewer taxes that we pay. So those are all, you know, standard payments that we make periodically.
And the JP Morgan Chase Bank was for the credit card of
Yeah,
that tax.
That's the credit card. So we'll have that every month, pretty much, right? Unless we stop spending for.
Well, some things like Zoom, we do a monthly. The only way you can pay Zoom is through a credit card.
Yeah, right. So we're gonna have charges, we're gonna have a payment to JP Morgan Chase every month.
Okay, any questions on the treasurer's update or the financial report? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a motion. Joe, okay.
I think Carolyn got it.
Carolyn, okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. In opposition,
Aye.
and motion passes. Going to the personnel report, page 17.
All right. Okay, so here we go. I have 2 actions requested, both of them a little confusing and not normal-ish. So the first one, you know that we have several positions that have been approved that we've been holding to fill. As physical circulation continues to increase, we need to add some hours. And one of the things I'm requesting to do is add 4 hours from one of the positions that was previously approved up here at the same level for a part-time library clerk. Instead of adding a whole new person, we want to add 4 hours from 11.67 hours to 15.67 hours for this clerk. Just add those 4 hours, but it's not an additional 4 hours. We're taking 4 hours from a previously approved library clerk position. We're just shifting the hours around, but because it's changed, I need your approval to do that. The second one is I have a full-time librarian position, and I'm asking for your permission to be able to have some flexibility about filling it as a librarian full-time or a library assistant full-time. But whichever we think meets the needs of the public services department at the time. We're going to look at canvassing as a librarian first, but I wanted to have the option to fill it as a library assistant. So that's a little bit unusual.
And you need our permission to make that.
I do, because if I have a job offer and I offer it to find the perfect person and they happen to be, they meet the qualification for a library assistant, I would have to wait and come back and ask you and say, hey, I want to change this from a librarian to a library assistant next month. I'm just asking for the flexibility of being able to. This filled for replacement for Ann Coletta, who moved to the tech services department, asking for that. That would, the simple thing would be just ask for that approval to refill that position for someone who moved from one department to fill and retire. This one, I'm just asking for flexibility to fill in either of those positions.
Any impact on the program?
Potentially. So there's some things that a library assistant can't do that librarians can. They can work, you'll find library assistants working on the information desk already, but they work under the supervision of the library. They don't have a master's degree, they have to have a bachelor's degree. And they would be able to do a program, perform the program, but not necessarily plan the program. That's a function of a librarian as defined under civil service. So it's someone who could do a program, but would have the librarians planning the program. In a perfect world, I would just have a librarian. It's more flexible. This is absolutely nothing to do with the difference in dollars. It's
Would this
just
be a permanent position?
permanent position.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you hired a library assistant.
Yeah.
There would be some functions that person would not be able to do.
Correct.
But it'd be a slower salary. Then how would you come back later to say I need a librarian or someone else to do that other stuff? I mean, so what?
No, because we have many librarians in the building already. So it's just finding the right fit for the right person to do the job.
You're saying that a very good librarian assistant
Right.
is better than a mediocre or a not quite the right fit full-time librarian.
Correct. And I've not been shy about my complaining about the state of the librarian one list through civil service.
So you're basically waiting on that. You can't find the person off the list, so you need to, okay, got it.
Just give me an option. If I can't find somebody through a canvas, we do our interviews, we look at people. If I can't find the right person, I want the option to be able to bounce to a library assistant. We have, library assistants doing this job right now very happily, and they're, have doing good service out for the public right now. So,
but the intent is to start as a canvas as the librarian.
yeah, we're already doing that. That canvas has already gone out.
You're saying if that doesn't work, you want to just bounce.
Yeah, because I don't want to wait a month and then be February. We're short. So my big concern right now is that we've been understaffed. We've been short-staffed on paper since the beginning of the pandemic. There was a position we didn't fill. We did need those positions early on. For the past year and a half, Chris, let's say there's been a lot of staffing changes because of pressures that we are not immune to, just like the rest of the world is not immune to. So we've been the folks in that department have been understaffed for like a year and a half. Just when civil service did a lot of shutting down during the pandemic, being able to get the tests done so that we could, have sufficient people in there. I've been mostly, I'm not an unfan of civil service. I'm not happy right now with the state of the tests.
Is this still like children's focused programming, or is it just?
Yeah, everything that I'm doing is children's focused programming. Yeah, you bet. That's my focus for the next year, is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of children's and young children program and young families. That's my goal. So the librarian we just lost, A. Coletta, she's a children's focused librarian who also happens to be an awesome cataloger. So we needed a cataloger, so she's our cataloger. But now I'm minus another really good children's librarian, so I need to go find them, and they are very difficult.
One of your requirements that they have to be presenting TikTok videos like the New York Times suggested last week.
Yeah, sure. They have to be, they have to be child focused and child positive, and that's and fair enough. There's plenty of people in the world who got into their work and aren't necessarily focused on serving children. I need to make sure that we're able to hire people who like serving children, and that is a positive thing. And there's plenty of those people in the world that just need to get one in.
I make a motion to move 4 hours from one
Thank you.
position to
Yeah.
the other, and to give Jeff permission to pursue a full-time librarian, but in his discretion, knock that down to a part-time librarian as the lists dictate.
Full-time library assistant.
Full-time library assistant, my apologies.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising their hand. Okay,
I
okay.
Thank you.
Opposition, that motion passes.
Can you keep us posted on that situation though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than my whining about it every month, I will. I
Okay,
will do that.
Jeff, director's report.
So my question is, we left off the UHL's report. Do you want to
Oh, we can do that too.
jump in?
Well, I mean, the only thing I would say is that the meeting is Wednesday. We haven't met yet, and I also don't have the packet yet, so I don't even know what we're talking about.
Okay.
But just a reminder about the racial equity training that's coming up this month, and also later on the agenda is the book ban organization initiative. I like think we should participate in, so.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I left that off.
That's all right.
What is that on my mess? Okay, you ready for director's report?
We're ready.
I'll do this as fast as I can. While building, lots of really good programs this month. I included sort of attendances. I'm happy to see generally speaking, we'll get down into the statistics. The circulation continues to be at about our pre-pandemic normal, as it has been since the summer. What I'm seeing are increases, larger increases in the percentage of the door count than in circulation, which means that some of those other things that we do as a library that aren't circulation are returning to normal. And I think that's my observed reality here in the library. It's nice to see when the numbers back up what I see. You go out there now, you're seeing more people attending programs, more people attending for studying. In fact, we're back to the point where we're looking at, we had all of the computers full the other day, which I haven't seen in about 3 years. So more people at tables, more people at computers. So I think that just expresses a growing comfort with being in civic spaces, of which the library is one of them. I don't think we're not back to normal, but we continue to approach normalcy. And that's nice for me. I'll take that. I don't read all this. I don't need to go through all this. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to say how I love that little blurb in there about how the harvest came, even though that was a horrible weather day. And that it turned out to have good attendance.
It was great.
Yeah.
And this is, and Michael picks out really good music programs, and he does an amazing job with that. And we were able to get that in, and even though we had to close at 4 because the weather started looking really iffy, we were able to do it after that program was in, and they were willing to come down because a lot of people might have opted not to come. So
And I was there, and actually she, in addition to playing, she talked. So it wasn't just like her playing, well, I shouldn't say just, she played music, but in between she explained about the instrument. She was an entertainer.
Yeah.
So it was very a great session. I took some pictures. I think I sent them.
you did, thank you. Yeah. And then we went to first night, so that was amazing. We handed out all of our 150 coupons next year for children's books. I don't know, Chris, have any been redeemed yet? I didn't. I didn't check either. So we'll check on that. I try to get you. We always try to look at that conversion rate. When we hand out a free coupon, we want to know how many people come in and actually get the books. It's fewer, but that's okay. It was a great event. It was much abbreviated from past first nights. It was all at the Four Corners. In and out, we were done by, fireworks went off and we were back here at the library by 7:30, even taking down our tents and everything else. It was pretty warm, so I don't think the ice sculpture was going to be long for the world after we went. It was getting pretty melty, but it was a good partnership with us and the chamber. So, we'll work on that. And again, as always, Polly from the Friends came down and helped us out. She was walking around with one of the frames we had from our photo booth and helping people take selfies down there. So that was.
And there's I saw some kind of winter carnival event coming up.
At LMF, yeah.
At LMF.
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some actual winter weather for that one.
End of January, 28th, or something like that.
Lots of good stuff. Thanks to Anne for her outreach. There we are with our frame. There's Polly hanging out down there. We did identify that we're going to work on some new easy ups, maybe that are branded, so we can not have to try to kludge on signs and hang them so people know who we are. We can just have them say who we are. So lots of people there. Obviously, they were there mostly for the fireworks. And fair enough, it was a really good fireworks display. So they punched above their weight for that. Wanted to roll down here. So when we talk about just as a little look into the fine-free thing, so we've been fine-free now for a significant portion of the year. I had Phil pull some of these numbers. Our on-time return rate is actually above our pre-pandemic normal. So if the worry is that people were worried that no one's ever going to bring back their books, ignoring that whatever this 2020 when people had their books for months and months and months and were obviously very, very late and we were closed for a bunch of that time. These are the higher numbers than even pre-pandemic levels, which hovered about 90. We're significantly above that since we've eliminated fines. So and it's impossible for us to tease out because they were so closely tied in time. The automatic renewals and the no fines, those two things are tied together. Both of them have led to an increase in on-time return rate. But the concern that the popular books, which are not renewable, so automatic renewals has nothing to do with popular books because they're on hold for people, so they don't automatically renew. This rate is actually up. So there's been a concern by expressed by some board members, but also some members of the public that this was going to lead to people keeping books out late that were popular, and that just doesn't seem to be materializing on a sort of collection wide.
Well, the 3 days late, the 4%, that's obviously lower than some years, but then higher than others.
Yes, but then
If you add those two together, you're almost at 98%.
yeah, so that's just that's everything. So back in 2018, while we had the 3% late was lower, but on-time return was down at 90, and that the percent late was 93, and that means that you're looking at some people who are holding onto things really, really late for whatever reason. This seems to have decreased that total. So in any case, it's quick and dirty, but I wanted to just bring that back and report to that. So we're not looking at huge negative impacts on the collection. But we are.
That's very good numbers to have. Thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, and that's a number now that we have that, we can pull it. Phil worked with folks at Upper Hudson. We will pull that, so now we can pull that pretty easily and report it to you.
So then the billing for the late stuff, that's that.
Yeah, right. So that's good. All right, so lots of meetings. I don't know if I mentioned last month, I don't think it was in time. I had the privilege of speaking in front of the New York State Assembly Standing Committee on Libraries and Educational Technology. Lots of fun. Everybody else got to talk about heartstrings and how libraries help children read. I got to complain about civil service. That was my portion. So I officially complained to our elected officials. When the video is released, I'll send it out to you. Watch me in all of my glory. In any case, been in contact with the new folks in the business office at the school district to get information to Sherry for developing the budget about our pilot payments, to make sure we have that in time to do our tax cap calculation. That's an important part of that budgeting process. In there. And then just a quick reminder that 2023 is the year we need to make sure every trustee has at least 2 contact hours of training in the year. Our training from Upper Hudson and the McLean Group will meet that, will satisfy that need, but if it doesn't, we'll have to meet that need in some other way. So just keep that in mind. The state is now watching. Last year was all just a fun run up to this year when I have to keep track of that.
We have exact dates on the, okay, we did, okay.
I think Jen sent out the dates.
Double check. Thank you.
So that training should fulfill our 2 hours.
It absolutely does. More than fulfill your 2 hours. Yeah, more than. Because that would be
3 hours.
three and a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
But next year we'll have to come up with something.
Yeah,
Got it.
right. And that's just, we can decide what that is. And Upper Hudson, NILA, the Division of Library Development, all of these are automatically allowable organizations to provide you with certified.
Community is a group or individually, right? Because
Both are
education.
Both are allowed. Yeah. I think sometimes it's easier if we do it as a group. That way we can keep track of it a little bit more simply. But as a super backup, Web Junction, which we watch for webinars on library training, is available to trustees and is also allowable under the Division of Library Development rules. So if we had to get last minute pickups of some training for somebody, we do have a escape hatch.
I know they do educational programs at the NILA annual meeting, or at
Yes.
least they always have in the past. Would something like that fall?
Absolutely. So Nyla
Because
and
that's actually a fun day.
yeah, they are. So it's contact hours. So each of those sessions about 45 minutes. You go there, you go to 3 sessions. You're done for the day. You're done for the year. So and we're here next year. We're in Saratoga once more, and I think the year after that we're in Saratoga. After that, it starts to head back across the state and bounce around, which may be a little bit more of a challenge for people to get to. But it is here this year in Saratoga. So it's super inexpensive for us to send you. So if you want to take the time and go and you're available, we would love for you to go. Library Advocacy Day is Tuesday, February 28th. That's you are all automatically invited. I do not yet know if we are doing in-person or virtual meetings. That is going to be at the pleasure of our elected officials. So we do have a new assembly member who is representing the town of Bethlehem, which we haven't met with yet. So they will let us know. Tim is setting those meetings up through Upper Hudson right now. As soon as I know when those meetings are, times and dates. What we won't be doing, it seems like it will likely never come back, is we used to sort of, everybody from Upper Hudson would go collectively and we would visit all of the assembly people. It seems a little bit more focused. It might be like, okay, Bethlehem and those folks are at 10, and then we meet with Breslin at whatever time, staffer from Breslin's office, whatever time, and then and then that's the day. We won't be hanging around for the whole day. So it's a little less of an day, a little bit more focused. So in any case, Tuesday, February 28th, details to follow. And then you'll see in February, I'll bring back the New York State Annual Report on Libraries. I'll be contacting all of you to make sure that I have your updated contact information and that your library emails are functional. So we'll be checking on those again. We check those once a year, and that's what goes into the annual report. Quickly at the numbers, just so I can tell you here. So again, circulation up, total circulation up about 5%. That's over December last year. That's kind of what I was experiencing. We're pretty near normal. But that's, again, 47,000 is a good, 50,000 for December is a good number. Tracking in the recent past, but again, door count up 25%. So from 11,000 to 14,000. So that's, those are some big increases that we're seeing in the door count. And again, all of that is represented by increases in public meeting attendance, as you can see here. There's increases in that, people who are using the meeting rooms. Program attendance up. Our outreach doesn't help us through the door, but it's still nice to see lots of outreach. But the program attendance, we've gone last year, this time we were doing 22 programs in the month. This year we did 48, and the total attendance for our programs was about 1,100. So that's just that return to normalcy, which makes me happy. Finally, I'm not going to talk about and that's it. Okay, good. Questions for me? That's as fast as I can go. I'm sorry.
No, any questions for Jeff? Okay, thank you. So we'll move into the new business. First, in United Against Book Ban. There's a piece of paper on page 25 in the packet.
This was something that Upper Hudson, I don't know if they'd been approached or they sought it out. I don't remember.
I think it was coming from the New York Alliance of Library Systems, the NIALS folks, which is a statewide group that represents all public library systems and other library systems across the state.
And when I clicked on that link on the packet, it didn't open. So I don't know if is there something behind that? Like if you click on that link now, will something show up?
I may have mistyped it.
It didn't work for me either. I had to
Yeah,
type it in.
so I don't know if there was something, I was lazy and typed it in, but I'm sure there was any background material on there.
I mean, they're just encouraging individual libraries to join. You as a trustee can also join,
Yes.
so. And it's just kind of in response to what's kind of a national, fortunately, occurrence that's going on. Not as much with us, but certainly in New York State it is happening.
Is there a statement, like a single
There
statement?
is,
That's what
yeah.
I'm looking for, you could, like a statement that kind of,
The only thing I know we discussed it even in our agenda meeting on this particular issue is the difference between how we usually work with policy that has to do with our library. And this is policy that has to do with other libraries. And do we want to start reaching out into that arena?
I guess my question is, if we join, what does that commit us to doing?
Just that we've joined.
Just joined.
Say that we've joined at this point. And I assume there's probably,
There's a page, let me go.
if there's some action that they decide to take in the future that we don't like, I would unjoin.
But we already have that policy for Bethlehem,
We do.
correct?
Am I correct that we don't have a policy by which we would ban a book? We have a policy by which we would choose not to include a book in the collection.
Correct. So
Which
there's
is
a-
not the same as banning a book.
Correct. So there's a,
What's the difference?
The difference is that someone can solicit that we include a book in the collection. We can
Right.
say, no, that is not something that we wish to purchase at this time. So that's passive,
Right.
saying we're not in that collection. Banning a book is saying To Kill a Mockingbird is a dangerous text and we will never allow it in this library. That is a very affirmative action of saying that. And so I think that we do not currently have, I don't think that we're going against any policy that we have. I think that we're simply saying that we agree with the policy or we agree with the idea not to ban books. That doesn't mean that we're giving up discretion over the ability to include books in our.
So, and we also have a policy that we're removing books.
There's a removal.
There's two, so it's two policies. One is removing, like someone can petition to remove a book, which.
Still different than banning it.
Right, no, I understand, but when you're saying like purchasing book was also a
Yeah.
policy that we're removing.
So I'm just saying that I don't think that there's anything about, and I agree that like we all need to look at the,
Yeah.
you know, national, organizations, we just want to make sure it's above board, but I don't think that we are. There's nothing in our policies currently that supports the idea of banning a book, or I think gives us that authority. It gives us the authority to remove, and it gives us the authority to decline, different than banning.
So what's the state, I'm still not
This is-
sure, like,
this
so
is
we have
what I-
an initiative, is there a statement saying like? You
Never tried to find.
so I got, so these are the 5 principles, I would say, that they're saying reading as foundational skill, critical to the future, learning and exercising democratic freedom. Books are a tool for understanding complex issues, limiting young people's access to books does not protect them from life's complex and challenging issues. Individuals should be trusted to make their own decisions about what to read. Parents should not be made.
So these are like the 5 tenets.
I would say these are their 5 principles.
So it gets to, just to restate what I said before, the issue of banning, like that's not, the difference here is that you're putting your name on a list that affects other libraries or that is an umbrella over other libraries, where in the past we kind of focused on what we do. So that's the point that I was trying to make.
Right, you're making a statement as a organization, you're making a statement about national trends and things that are happening outside the library.
It's just for the record, I want to, because we're on YouTube, we are on the record, I just want to make sure that I do not think that Mockingbird is a dangerous text. I just use that as an example of a text that other people have said is dangerous, not me. I can see that going somewhere.
Yeah, and so I've been talking about this a little bit and I'm very supportive of these principles. I just want to draw a line around, if it's a library issue, I think we should, I think the library boards is within their rights to take positions. But I really don't want to go outside library issues. I want, and so I would caution that if we take joint organizations or take stands against certain things, it should be within a library context, not a non-library context. So I'm okay with this.
You mean libraries in general, or like this library in particular?
Libraries in general, like, like, I wouldn't want to have a library board debate foreign policy, for example.
Or even like what the school is offering.
Exactly. Right, because I just, I mean, so for this particular thing, you know, we are going outside our library. And I don't think we've done that, at least I don't remember doing that. My experience here, but I'm okay with it, but I want to say, as we go across, let's be careful that we limit it to the library world.
So this is more expansive than libraries, correct? Is that what your understanding is?
I don't know that I feel qualified to say that.
What you're saying is that you want to support other libraries and other library ideas, but you would never go as far as to a library should not support a political candidate or a library
Exactly,
should not support
Right,
a particular like town initiative
or a policy, you know, some sort of.
Or attempt to, yeah. attempt to
national
build a
policy.
library.
Yep.
So where are we?
So the question is, do we want to join or sign on to this United Against Book Bans particular? That's why I would frame the question. We've been solicited that we should consider this, and that's the question.
Jeff, could you go back to the part of the packet?
Yes.
So. Albany,
Oh,
so Gilderland hasn't,
I didn't see Gilland on there. I just.
Albany actually joined it before Upper Hudson.
Albany would be the first one to do it. So that's-
As an organizational partner, I wonder what that means.
Right, that's just, you can sign on to this as a person. Any individual can choose to do that, and then organizations can sign on. So I was just, in their whole list of partners on their page, I went through and listed the ones that were local to us. So we didn't have to go through their whole.
What does it mean to be an organizational partner?
Just that you've signed on
And you're an
You're
organization.
They put that out before. I mean, it's one thing to say that we support this statement versus
right,
what's an organization.
yeah.
I mean, in Upper Hudson, basically it asked us to bring it back to the board. So that's what I'm feeling. Say again. Upper Hudson asked us to bring it back to our boards to consider joining, so that's.
And if you look at their website, which it really doesn't, it means that you believe in these tenants and you're willing to put your name on these 5-10%. And that's about it. We call on all policymakers to unite against book bans. I don't see anything besides that.
it seems pretty innocuous.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to sign on to United Against Book Bans as an organization.
I'll second
Any further discussion? Any comment? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Anything in opposition, motion passes.
it. I will say that I think at least I'm experiencing softer voices, so as we go through the meeting, people could talk a little bit louder since we're not mic'd, it's gonna be helpful for me. Thank you.
Okay, any other new business?
I don't.
Any trustee have any other new business? Okay, going to old business, notary services update, page 26, 27.
All right, so I put together just a quick report about where we stand on notary services. I contacted Upper Hudson. They had a program in the past and are restarting a program where they will reimburse any library staff member to take the notary certification class if it ends up with them being actually certified as a notary. So that was the new codicil that was added to that. So they have to go through that whole process. It's only $45. Hudson Valley provides these classes. If they get enough people, Upper Hudson is asking other libraries about this right now. I think based on maybe my question and another library's question. So if we get enough people together, Upper Hudson can have a class, and I'm imagining we got enough people, we could have our own class for this because Hudson Valley was looking for about 10 people for a class. So that's an option. There's reimbursement for that for Upper Hudson. So that's nice, free-ish. I surveyed the staff because obviously we can't require people to be notaries because when you become a notary, there are some questions about your convictions of crimes and other things. So if we tried to force people to do that, that would be a proxy question for questions that we're not allowed to ask. as far as HR is concerned. But I said, hey, who would be interested in this? If we had that, we had 15 people were super enthusiastic. Another 4 were like, I need more information about this. And a few people came back, no, and lots of people were completely silent on that. So at about 15, throw myself in at 16, that seemed to be enough people that I think we could provide coverage for lots of hours. I wouldn't guarantee that it was 72 hours a week, but providing that notary services on weekends and evenings would be the thing that was actually a service.
And how many people do we have currently?
One.
One. I think you go like for 20. I'm like, do we need to go from 1 to 20? So I mean, that's the other.
Well, the thing is, the hard part is I don't have someone who works nights and weekends only. Like I have people like Tanya is here during the day. So when she's here, she can cover much of the middle part, the regular 9 to 5 part of the day.
So can
cover-
every other, so can every other building down up and down Delaware.
But providing I think if you were going to pursue this, the benefit to the public would be providing the service at those hours. And unfortunately, because people work nighttime and weekend rotations, getting enough coverage to be able to say with some reasonable certainty that there would be most of the time somebody on most evening shifts and weekend shifts, it's going to be like 15 or 20 people there to get to there, right? Because
Yeah, you have a chart.
I do. We'll get there. So absolutely. So in any case, the other question where we have worked to get an answer out of our insurance agent for years was about errors and omissions insurance. And he came back with a very conclusive answer that our liability insurance is probably not sufficient and would not be as good for covering errors and omissions for someone who is providing this service under the library's auspices. He said there might be an argument. I also contacted our attorney about this because I wanted an outside of an insurance salesman's answer on this, and they were pretty much in concert. Our attorney came back and said $10,000 is absolutely in no way nearly enough money as far as that is concerned. But in any case, the policies range from $25 a year per notary for $10,000 coverage to $140 a year, which was the number we were quoted last time. There was only one number, and it was $100. Now, the library could, by policy, say that they would cover anything in excess, any liability in excess of that policy. So you could mitigate the price of the insurance by having the library, by policy, say that we would cover any judgments or liability that came from providing the notary services. By policy. There are some one-time startup costs. We'll get to the chart in a second. And then again, I just contacted the attorney, and she did a really good write-up for the CDLC's Ask the Librarian account about this sometime last year. And I just contacted her again. I wanted to be sure. And she said the biggest thing would be to make sure that we were budgeted for a yearly training to make sure that our protocols were airtight on this and that people were current and up to date on the law as far as services that they would be providing, and to keep really good records of those notarizations. So. And that the library would cover time if the notary got called into court or to testify, that the employee would be held harmless for that time in that service that was provided under the auspices. So it's another potential expense. Legal representation, which is what the insurance provides the errors and omissions insurance provides legal. So in any case, with all of those codicils, and that we would want to have that our attorney craft that notary policy, which would be very detailed. Just looking at one-time expenses, estimating our attorney costs. That's the most significant part of one-time expenses. We have no cost for the certification class, thanks to Dr. Hudson. The written exam fee of $15, the notary stamps. We buy those about $40 a piece. And then ongoing costs, as a registration cost, that would have to be paid $60 in the first year, and then every 4 years after that, there's a registration cost for notaries. And then the biggest cost of the ongoing costs is the provision of the insurance at whatever level. I went on the high end, assuming 20 people at $100 a year, $100 a year. That's how I arrived at that number, but there are gradations involved in there if we wanted to scale back on how much The insurance covered right out of the box if you wanted to go to $50,000 rather than $100,000. Those are all options there. So it is not an inexpensive service. So right now we do about 12 of these a month on average.
And that's just 9 to 5.
Just 9 to 5.
When I'm here, that I'm the only one who keeps track of it, and that's just, I don't know how many times they've been asked, and I've not been here, so. But I have done in the last 6 months an average of just over 12 a month.
So I think there's no doubt that it would be a service that people would like. The question I have for you is, given these costs and the things we have to pursue as far as policy is concerned, what do we imagine the service level might be if it was available on nights and weekends? What's the, what's the benefit of that service? And is that worth the expense? Which again, maybe a little admittedly high as far as our insurance rates, but is that worth the expense on an ongoing basis? That's my question. So we can continue to pursue this more. We haven't done anything. Is this something you want me to continue to pursue? Put some policies in place, start looking what that looks like, get some people signed up for some of those classes. Is that something we're interested in or not?
I would say that I really love the idea of having free to the public notary at the library. I was so disappointed when I saw this and how expensive the insurance becomes. We've never had an issue in the past. Is that correct?
I'm not mentioned yet. But I had someone who actually came in like a week and a half ago, wanted me to notarize something, had no ID, and was not happy when I told them that they had, I couldn't notarize their document.
No ID, no ID. But to go from 25 to 140, that's a huge jump. In insurance, and so those are our only options.
No, there's gradations all in there. So that was I just had trouble getting on. So $140 a year, knock that in half, take it down to $50,000 a year. They have all sorts of from $10,000 to 20 to 25 to 40 to $50,000. There's levels of coverage. Our attorney just said $10,000 now.
Oh, okay. I thought the attorney was saying you really need 100.
She liked it. She liked that level of coverage. She was not unhappy about that, but
Well, I like the level of coverage. I just don't think you need 20 people. I mean, to be honest with you, to go from 1 to 20 seems a little extreme. So I would support this and say, look, somewhere between 5 and 10. And then you just space it out, people who are working weekends or evenings, and we don't say we have it every minute the library's open this year. I think that's
no one here.
that's a lot. So, try to schedule such, but
I think what he was saying is it takes 20 people to cover that time period.
It's not gonna be right. So the people who work on each of the nights, if we get a part-timer, that's good because they work on multiple nights a week. The full-time people work 1 night a week. And then the weekend coverage. The question is how certain do you want to have it? What we have right now is a non-workable situation. So that's really what brought this up, to be able to say, hey, this is a service we provide, and then not provide it seems to be the cause of the tension. So
don't worry about saying we provide it and then not having someone available to do it.
Right.
So
How many people do we need to say that we can provide it on weekends? Maybe we can't guarantee weeknights,
right.
but we can provide it on weekends.
Maybe
Or I was going to suggest just Saturdays. Or could be just Sundays, but 1 day of the weekend rather than both.
I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable.
yeah. So
Every hour the library is open, you can't get something notarized. That's.
Yeah, I would support it. I just don't think you need 20 people. I get what you're saying, but
But if we can offer a service that is not being offered otherwise in town, and I think weekends is certainly. But if that brings the cost down, but if that only works, if that's workable.
And it gets the right people. I mean, that's the thing. So I have to go back through, I'll go back through the list of people and I'll look who's there and I'll see. My impression is it's not going to be.
We're not gonna get every weekend.
You're not going to get it.
Okay.
Just from the people who responded to my informal canvas of this.
Oh, you think you won't have?
Not at like 5, no.
Are interested
Nope.
in doing it.
At 10, do you think you might?
Maybe.
Okay,
like Saturday morning or something, offer something.
but I mean, 10 is half, that half's every.
isn't it?
Right, plus I would have the insurance, right?
All right, so if we have the insurance and we have the amount of people,
Then we're talking.
That's right, not
Okay,
to.
yeah, right.
Okay, good morning.
I mean, is there any precedent for us offering a service but not being available at any time libraries open?
Yep.
Okay. What's that?
Notary, right?
Right now, 3D printer,
Okay. But the 3D printer is available, it just might not be, you have to wait in line.
or maybe it's not available the hour or two. If we don't have someone to help support it when it's here, you know, if it's your first time or not.
Okay.
Every hour, yeah.
Okay. I think we gotta cut, I think you gotta do some more work on this, come back. That's what I would say.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
so what I'm hearing
It's worth-
is, if we can provide some level of decent level of coverage at 5 to 10 people, that would be the goal.
Yeah, and then you just advertise the hours.
Yes.
Notary services are available in the library, once you figure this all out, and then you post them on our website and all the rest, so that people know ahead of time if they check. That,
I just think, weekends are very difficult because of the rotational nature of how we feel. So part-time people work one weekend in 3, our full-time people are working one weekend in 6.
oh, I see.
Getting to a point where
So
we're
there's no one that just shows up on.
on a Saturday, right, that's what I'm saying, I don't have a every Saturday
Okay.
human being, that's, that maybe that's the understanding that it seems simple, but is in fact not.
Yeah, that's.
So there's,
So no one just works Saturday at the library. I'm Charmaine, I'm the Saturday librarian.
Correct.
I don't exist.
Can you come back and let us know what the number is that you would need to cover the weekend?
Yep.
If it's 20, like that's the answer, but if it's 11, we might be able to work with that.
Or even like one day a weekend. If we
Yeah.
Do it Saturday.
Or, you know,
do it Sunday.
Yeah, just Saturday.
And what budget line deck? Roughly, I mean, like.
It's insurance, it's gonna come out of insurance, notary costs, maybe,
Memberships, is there something?
I don't know. we'll
Yes,
see.
stamps would be,
Yes.
It tells where it comes. Thanks.
okay,
Thank you.
I'll bring it back,
I'll get info.
okay.
Okay, the next issue is donation naming rights.
Right, so this is mostly just a report, I polled the other libraries, who are similar to enough to us to make it worthwhile, not the nonprofit libraries, because again, they have an easier time fundraising than we do. I have some information on that, that I will be synthesizing as I get more of it from some of the non-responsive libraries. And I'll get that put out to you. I guess the question is, do you want to pursue that conversation at the policy committee, or do we want to pursue that conversation at the board? What's my next? Just put that information out to everybody and you guys. decide.
That's it, the board meeting, but decide we want to do it first and then, then it gets kicked to the policy committee.
To develop policies, yeah.
And maybe if we don't have as many items on the agenda next time, we can really like make that a huge discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that there's been some work on that. Most of the libraries, very informal, happens kind of just catch as catch can. So there hasn't been, there's not a lot of, even in some very functional libraries, there's not a lot of formality to this. I know at Yodeland, they put together a big policy more as a fundraising opportunity for the construction, and no one came forward and wanted to buy a room. So they had prices and a policy in place to do that, but it didn't end up happening, which is kind of the opposite situation where we have a couple people interested in.
Does the library attorney, that you go to the FA, has she done anything on it?
No, but I can ask.
Okay.
So I don't know if this is something that possibly Phil could help with. It seems like Catherine were here. She'd go out and Google and give us a chart on this is what other libraries are doing and things like that. Is that something possibly that he could work on?
Or that's me, more than Catherine. That's me. So I asked that question to the Directors Association, which included all the libraries, but it's mostly the people who actually work, the larger libraries. And then I asked Crandall, Saratoga, Clifton Park Half Moon, Poughkeepsie, and Schenectady would be the libraries that are enough like us to make it worthwhile. So I got pretty good answers back from that group.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking someone that maybe took the phones off of you.
Well,
Okay.
I'm gonna work with Jen. You got it. Got it. I'll put that together.
All right, great. The next item is negotiation update.
Okay, so we're having an initial meeting with our attorneys from Bunch and King just to talk to them about what we imagine and what we wish for from our side, what that negotiation look like. I've reached out to the unit president again. They are going to have a meeting with either their membership or their representative at some time this month, and then they'll be back to me after that, and we'll try to get something scheduled. So we're ready to go on our side, and we're just waiting for labor side to be ready to. I've reached out.
So remind me, when does the board come into like more active discussion on that? Because you say you're meeting with the attorneys to get a sense of what we're.
So I've contacted the negotiating committee. Carolyn's going to come and if you're available, and just to talk about what we would want, how would that look like? Not about what we're talking about, but what would that negotiation process?
Like a process, okay.
Correct. What was that look like?
So when you come to the board, or when to the more of the nitty.
Yeah, it's more of a feel thing. I think
Yeah.
that certainly we would come to the board when we have negotiated, when we have a negotiated contract, when we have something, we say, we have negotiated this. This is what we're presenting to the board. What do you guys think? And then I think that we would come piecemeal. But potentially before we go into negotiations about bigger items, like what is our authority?
Yeah, like a parameters.
Yes, what are our parameters? And then potentially if there are negotiations that there's a sticking point. Or we want to go around the parameters, but we think it'll move things forward, then we would come to you. But the big item would be, the big three, I think, would be our parameters, any devil in the details, and then the final negotiated contract.
I think just setting up for those, or having some discussion of the parameters, I want to make sure it was part of that, so.
Yeah. And then basically, when we're in negotiations, every board meeting, there's an executive session.
Absolutely.
So that's.
Yeah, we call it the devil in the details.
Yes. Vision parameters is, I think, important.
Yeah. And when we talk to the attorney, we're gonna focus on efficiencies. The attorneys, the process was a little old school last time. It was a lot of in-person. There was one meeting where we all came, we sat around a table like this, and everyone read the document that everyone had and said, these are the items that we're looking at, and these are the items that we're looking at. And then the attorneys were like, okay, that's enough for today. And that we don't, and that may be the way that negotiations, especially with unions, have occurred, I think, over time. Time is money, literally, with our attorneys. So we're looking to make that a more efficient, I think, they're saying more modern process, as long as we're not upsetting, with an eye toward making sure that we are being polite and not upsetting the union, making sure that we're honoring their wishes in that.
Right, because the process itself is negotiated.
Yes.
Thing. So
Yes, but there could be more trading of documents in meetings and.
Sure.
Things
So
like
you're
that.
not just in rooms reading things together, as opposed to, okay, we've come prepared, now let's use the time to discuss.
Yes, and the rooms are really not the time when you should work with your team to figure out what you're going in with. You should come to a meeting with your negotiation points, know where your parameters are, and there wasn't a lot of that, I think, last time. Sorry, Jeff, that was drove me insane.
Lisa, were you part of that last time?
Yeah. I think it drove me insane.
To me, it just seemed like a lot of reliance on a very old school way of doing things.
It had a very old men with cigars and.
Yeah,
rooms, basically. But that doesn't work when everyone has to be there in the middle of the day, not just us, but individuals from the union are taking time out from their work to come and represent the union.
except they're getting paid for it, so.
They are, but I mean, that means Jeff has to re-staff things, and so it's hard.
Thank you.
it's a lot of people in the room.
Yeah.
So maybe helpful to know ahead of time or when you're looking for parameters. And then maybe even give direction to the board, like what are you talking about when you talk about parameters?
If I would expect if things move along as they might. Well, yes, healthcare will be a big thing, but I'm imagining that at the February meeting, it's very likely that we'll have an executive session at the end of the February meeting where we might be having that exact discussion,
Parameters, yeah.
a parameter discussion, because I don't, but I we can't unilaterally go into negotiations.
No, I understand.
It takes two to tango. So, I'm ready to roll.
So heads up, that's February parameter.
Potentially, as long as we get their term sheet.
Okay, that's it. Sorry, there's not more update for that, but that's what I have.
The contract expires when?
June 30th. July 1st, June 30th. It expires on June 30th
23.
of 23. Yeah. It's not short term,
No,
but it's not long time.
right time, yeah.
I would, in my history here, traditionally, this, where we are right now is where we would be in November. So I'm a little nervous because I don't like to let it get this far forward, especially when it whatever it's gonna be this year.
Well, a number of things happened that caused that.
Yeah.
Okay, any other old business? Any future business? Any ideas, any things that people want to put on the agenda for the future? On top of their head, okay. Any public participation?
Nope.
Okay, so maybe we should move into executive session.
So we need a motion to move into executive session to discuss the employment performance of a specific individual.
So moved. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, motion